Hello everybody, welcome to Sozine Classes. This is Chandralekha bringing to you the news podcast, all the news you need and more.
In today's news podcast, we will be looking at the three ordinances that were passed in the Lok Sabha recently. The first one being the Essential Commodities Bill 2020. The second one is the Farmers Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Bill. And the third being the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Bill. Among these three, the Essential Commodities Bill was passed on September 15 and was already discussed in yesterday's news podcast. So I will leave the link in the description box below for you to understand what the Essential Commodities Bill is all about. So in today's news podcast, we will look at the remaining two ordinances, that is the bills that were passed yesterday in the Lok Sabha. Before looking at the other two ordinances, let us understand why these three were introduced. So there were several legislative reforms that were announced by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. And these included the changes in the definition of MSMEs, amendments to the Insolvency Code under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, and the agricultural reforms sector. So under the agricultural sector, there were three reforms, three ordinances that were introduced on June 5th. And they were passed on September 15th and 17th respectively. In order to understand the reasons behind the bills that were introduced, let us first understand what APMC is, that is the Agricultural Produce Market Committee. So the main objective of the Agricultural Produce Market Committee is to ensure a fair trade between the buyers and the sellers, that is between the farmer, producers and the buyers who buy the produce from the farmers. So the APMCs have a few powers. They can regulate the trade of farmer produces by providing licenses to buyers, commission agents and private markets. They can levy market fees or any other charges on such trades. They provide necessary infrastructure within their markets to facilitate the trade. Since these laws were not implemented in their true sense, and there were a lot of issues that were observed by the Standing Committee on Agriculture, they have come up with what sorts of issues, and that was the main reason they have come up with the three ordinances. And the issues the Standing Committee has pointed out were: the most APMCs have a limited number of trade options, which leads to the centralized and reduce in the competition among the farmers. And there were undue deductions in the form of commission or market charges, that is the market fees they were taking. So there was unnecessary charges that were charged on the farmers in the name of commission and market fees. And there was highly restrictive in promotion of multiple channels of marketing, that is more buyers or direct sale of business or retail customers, etc. So in order to curb these issues, the three ordinances were introduced to aim to increase the availability of buyers for farmer produce by allowing them to trade freely without any license or stock limit, so that an increase in competition among them results in the better prices for farmers. Let us now understand what the Farmers Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Bill is all about. This bill introduces a framework called the contract farming, in which the producers, that is the farmers, and the farm organizations or buyers, like the food processing units, enter into the market with a return contract prior to the production. So with this return contract, the farmers will be able to sell their produce to buyers with a fixed price in the future, and there will not be any competition among any disturbance among the farmers with respect to the prices in the farm producers and the buyers collecting their produce from the farmers. So in this manner, the farmers can reduce the risk of fluctuating market prices and demand, and buyers can reduce the risk of non-availability So they can reduce the risk of non-availability of quality produce. Now let us look at what are the facts that are available in this agreement. So under this agreement, there was a term. The term sponsors was used for buyers in this agreement. So the term sponsors means it is referred to anyone who has entered the market with the agreement to buy farming produce. So that is the meaning of what sponsors is in this bill. So the minimum period of an agreement will be one crop season or one production cycle for livestock. And the maximum period is 5 years unless the production cycle is 5 years. The sponsors can be individuals, companies, partnership firms. The term sponsors in this agreement can be individuals, companies, partnership firms, limited liability group or societies. The agreement must include the price to be paid for agricultural produce. The price may change over the course of agreement. So it should include a guaranteed price and specify an additional price. The agreed amount must be paid at the time of delivery. And the agreement can include terms and conditions with respect to the supply, quality and standards of the produce. And there may be any monitoring and certification with respect to the produce with respect to the terms and conditions in this agreement. And in order to mitigate risk, so whenever there is risk between in this agreement, in order to mitigate that, the agreement can be linked with insurance or credit loan instruments like loans. One of the major points in this agreement, in this bill, is that the buyers cannot make any permanent modifications or take ownership of the farmer's land. And if there is any dispute, the ordinance requires that there will be a conciliation process and a formation of a conciliation board with representation of both the parties. And if these two parties do not come into any agreement within 30 days after the board is formed, they will be approaching the subdivisional magistrate, and the magistrate can take any actions to recover the dues with respect to the farmers and the buyers. And no action will take place against the agricultural land. So even the subdivisional magistrate cannot take any actions against the agricultural land of the farmers. So this was all about the first ordinance that was introduced in the Lok Sabha yesterday. Let us now look at the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Bill 2020. So this bill allows the intrastate and interstate trade of farmers' produce beyond the physical premises, such as the trade can be conducted outside the trade area like the farm gates, factory premises, warehouses, silos and cold storages. This bill gives the farmers the freedom to sell their produce to individual persons, companies or cooperatives, and under this ordinance this also allows the certain entities to set up and operate electronic trading platforms like the companies, the partnership firms, the registered societies and farmer producer organizations. Major point in this bill is that the state government is prohibited from levying market fees, cess, levy on farmers, traders and electronic trading partners. So this is all about the Farmer Producer Trade and Commerce Bill, that is in keeping in mind how the functions of APMC have failed in coming into the picture in reality. The three ordinances passed in maintaining fair trade between the buyers and the sellers of farmer produce. So this was all about the three ordinances. So we have discussed only two in today's class. So about the essential commodities, the main ordinance was discussed in yesterday's news podcast. So I am again reminding you that I will leave the link in the description box below. Here are the questions of today's daily news diary. So you will find the answers to these questions in the website www.sozineclasses.com. Let me read out few of the questions for you. The first question is, how important are intergovernmental negotiations and other reforms in the United Nations to reflect the altered geopolitical realities in order to stay relevant? Explain the Gilgit-Baltistan province row between Pakistan and India. Question number 3. What are wetlands and describe the recent steps taken by the Rajasthan government to conserve its diversity. Question number 4. Give a crux of the agriculture bills on the ongoing protest around it. With respect to this question, we have discussed two ordinances today, and one was discussed earlier in the yesterday's news podcast. So I would again remind you that I will leave the link in the description box below of yesterday's news podcast. Please have a look at both today's and yesterday's in order to have a detailed explanation about the ordinance. From yesterday's news podcast, the question from the DLD is, according to the UNDP, which country from the following list is amongst the worst affected countries in Asian region and potentially globally due to the impact of COVID-19? And the answer is option C, Maldives. This is the explanation. And from today's daily news diary, this is the preliminary question. That is, according to ICMR, from the antibodies produced in a COVID-19 infection, convalescent plasma therapy, which of the most visible neutralizing effect? And the options are option A, immunoglobulin A, option B, immunoglobulin B, option C, immunoglobulin G, and option D, all of the above.
Thus leaving you all to write your answer in the comments section below. This is a wrap on your news podcast. Tomorrow is another day with another news. Thank you and have a great day.